We were sitting in the haymow. I wore my saddest face and spoke in my saddest voice, painting a picture of what his life would be like if his mother was allowed to carry through with this plan, how he would have neither farm nor father, how he would find himself in a much bigger school, all his friends, most since babyhood, left behind, how, once in that new school, he would have to fight for a place among strangers who would laugh at him and call him a country bumpkin. On the other hand, I said, if we could hold on to all the acreage, I was convinced we could pay off our note at the bank by 1925 and live happily debt-free, breathing sweet air instead of watching pig guts float down our previously clear stream from sunup to sundown. Now what is it you want? I asked after drawing this picture in as much detail as I could manage. To stay here with you, Papa, he said. Tears were streaming down his cheeks. Why does she have to be such a... Go on, I said. The truth is never cussing, son. Such a bitch. Because most women are, I said. It's an ineradicable part of their natures. The question is what we're going to do about it. But the conniving man inside had already thought of the old well behind the cow barn, the one we only used for slop water because it was so shallow and murky, only 20 feet deep and little more than a sluice. It was just a question of bringing him to it. And I had to, surely you see that. I could kill my wife but must save my lovely son. To what purpose the ownership of 180 acres, or 1,000, if you have no one to share them with and pass them on to? I pretended to be considering Arlette's mad plan to see good corn land turned into a hog butchery. I asked her to give me time to get used to the idea. She assented. And during the next 2 months I worked on Henry, getting him used to a very different idea. 'Twasn't as hard as it might have been. He had his mother's looks, a woman's looks are the honey, you know, that lure men on to the stinging hive, but not her god-awful stubbornness. It was only necessary to paint a picture of what his life would be like in Omaha or St. Louis. I raised the possibility that even those two overcrowded antheaps might not satisfy her, she might decide only Chicago would do. Then, I said, you might find yourself going to high school with black niggers. He grew cold toward his mother, after a few efforts, all clumsy, all rebuffed, to regain his affections. She returned the chill. I, or rather the conniving man, rejoiced at this. In early June I told her that, after great consideration, I had decided I would never allow her to sell those 100 acres without a fight, that I would send us all to beggary and ruin if that was what it took. She was calm. She decided to take legal advice of her own, for the law, as we know, will befriend whomever pays it. This I foresaw. And smiled at it. Because she couldn't pay for such advice. By then I was holding tight to what little cash money we had. Henry even turned his pig bank over to me when I asked, so she couldn't steal from that source, paltry as it was. She went, of course, to the Farrington Company offices in D-Land, feeling quite sure, as was I, that they who had so much to gain would stand good her legal fees. They will, and she'll win, I told Henry from what had become our usual place of conversation in the haymow. I was not entirely sure of this, but I had already taken my decision, which I will not go so far as to call a plan. But Papa, that's not fair, he cried. Sitting there in the hay, he looked very young, more like 10 than 14. Life never is, I said. Sometimes the only thing to do is to take the thing that you must have. Even if someone gets hurt. I paused, gauging his face. Even if someone dies. He went white. Papa. If she was gone, I said, everything would be the way it was. All the arguments would cease. We could live here peacefully. I've offered her everything I can to make her go, and she won't. There's only one other thing I can do. That we can do. But I love her. I love her, too, I said. Which, however little you might believe it, was true. The hate I felt toward her in that year of 1922 was greater than a man can feel for any woman unless love is a part of it. And, bitter and willful though she was, Arlette was a warm-natured woman. Our marital relations had never ceased, although since the arguments about the 100 acres had begun, our grapplings in the dark had become more and more like animals rutting. It needn't be painful, I said. And when it's over? Well? I took him out back of the barn and showed him the well, where he burst into bitter tears. No, Papa.